And away we go. It is the Holy Grail BCJ podcast right here on BearcatJournal.com. I'm Chad Brendel. He's Dave Simone. As always, special guest today. But first, baseball season's back. Holy Grail. That's what you do, right? Go to the ballpark. You go to the Holy Grail before the game. Get some food. You enjoy yourself. You go to the game. Hopefully the Reds win. That's not looking great right now. But hopefully the Reds win. You go back and you celebrate post-game at the Holy Grail. They have been longtime partners, longtime sponsors here at Bearcat Journal, and they are awesome UC fans, and they deserve your support. So get to that. And Dave, a little later tonight, we have a new sponsor.
Oh, okay. I'm assuming it's like food or beverage related.
The timestamps are now sponsored.
Oh.
And they are sponsored. We have a beverage sponsor for the timestamps. So
wonderful.
We will get to that here a little bit later in the show. But let's get rolling. We have a very special guest with us tonight to kick off the show. It is spring break. There's no spring football to talk about. So we figured this would be what better time than to have our good friend, Cincinnati Athletic Director John Cunningham, join the show. John, welcome. And how are you enjoying this lovely spring weather that has ascended on Cincinnati this week?
Thanks, Chad. Good to see you, David. It was great. I purposely tried to get home a little bit earlier than I usually do because I knew my boys would be out playing in the yard. And came home, they were playing with their buddies, and they had their shirts off. So they thought it was shirts off weather. So got to play a little hoops in the front yard with them. So it's awesome. It's when you're a basketball fan like I am, just in general, it's the best time of year. Obviously, we wish we were playing in the tournament, men's and women's tournament. But I laughed the other night. It's that time of year where every big basketball fan asks the question, where in the world is True TV on my television set? And you got to find it. So I had that on tonight, and here we go.
Well, Aaron's probably on pins and needles watching the alma mater play right now.
Hey, Aaron's the Wright State guy, so.
Oh yeah. It was close at half. So
up,
that's actually
8.
I had a chance to go to that event twice. I was at Boise State. Boise State played in it 2 out of 3 years, and it's actually a really fun deal. If anybody has a chance to get up there, they do it right up there, and it's a sneaky good event.
For sure. So with basketball being over, there's never in your world, I assume there's never a quiet time per se, but basketball's over, baseball in full swing. We're still a ways away from football. What is kind of your world looking like right now? What are the big things that you guys in the athletic department are working on?
Yeah, I mean it's funny. There's this thought that there's some sort of kind of a break after basketball season ends, but to be honest, the majority of our student athletes now are ramping up into their championship season. So it's a good time to focus in on them and their efforts to compete and win championships. And so obviously women's lacrosse and tennis and baseball and track and swimming and diving coming down toward the end of their season. So all golf's of course going strong. So it's just it's an exciting time of year for them to put in all the hard work that they do throughout the year to finally get a chance to compete in games and contests. So that's what we're focused in on.
I guess that you bring up a good point in that, basketball, football, they're the headliners. We all understand they're the revenue drivers. But since you've been here, what have you seen and where are you trying to elevate I don't want to call them non-revenue sports, but the not basketball, football element to continue to build those sports, to get those to the highest level possible as we, at some point enter the Big 12 and know that a lot of those sports there are uber competitive and winning national championships and things like that.
Yeah, I think it always starts with recruiting, David. So we're always looking at ways we can support our head coaches in their recruiting efforts, because if we get the best, and I know we have really good coaches, then we're gonna compete and win. So try to help them with those things. Right now, one of the things that we focused in on as we head to the Big 12, we hired in-house clinician to help with our mental health. So we had someone that just started here, and she's been fantastic helping us with that, Lanisha. And then we also have really focused in on our nutrition elements too. So we feel strongly that those were two areas that we needed to get a boost in as we go into the Big 12. And they are directly associated with the student athlete experience, which then translates into helping our recruiting out in all of our sports. So, I think I probably start there with recruiting. And then I'd also, look to our external team, our marketing group, to help out where we can with attendance at all of those events. They deserve our fan base, our tremendous fan base, to come out and support them. And my experience is that when our fans do, they really enjoy it. And, it's a different experience. It's an experience where you can have really close connection with the student athletes that are performing. So we really encourage our fans to come out to volleyball, to come out to soccer, lacrosse, baseball. Obviously had a great night the other night with a full house playing Ohio State, and all of our other sports too. So we're really trying to push that as well.
It's got to be encouraging to see baseball the way the attendance has spiked to start this season, because it's a great venue. There's not a bad seat in the house, and they've got a pretty exciting product. So it's got to be cool to see that start to ignite a little bit and see the fan base get behind Coach Guggens and his team.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I think on a nice night, going out there and watching some baseball is just about as good as it gets in college athletics, to be honest with you. And we sell beer, and that's one thing that is unique for our experience for college baseball. And I think our professional fan base is used to being able to go out for a hot dog and a beer at 6:00 at night and watch some baseball. So why not do it and do it for a lot less money than you would for the Reds? Reds have a great product as well. There's a place for that, but I think there's also a place for going to watch your local college team play as well. And it's a fun brand of baseball. You're going to get a lot of runs, as we've seen all year. And it's always a good time to watch some college baseball.
As we still don't really know officially when the move to the Big 12 is going to happen, can you give an update on the day one campaign, where things kind of sit right now, and what phase you guys are kind of in that process? As it's been announced for quite some time, you've been fundraising for a while. Where are things now maybe compared to where they were at the jump?
Yeah, so we've made a lot of progress. We've had a really good several months and actually a really good couple of weeks. The last 2 weeks have been tremendous for us fundraising wise. And so, I give a lot of credit to our UCATS team across the board. We've got some tremendous fundraisers, Karen Hatcher, Brad Okel, Mark Berger, that whole entire group down there. We just hired a guy named Michael Thomas that was at Minnesota with me. That's going to be really good. And we just have a good core group that's out there trying their very best to raise some money. And so we're getting in front of everybody. That's my constant statement. I think when I was with Chris Del Conte, who's the AD at Texas, he used to call it icy hot, constant heat. So we're going to have some constant heat on people, and we're getting in front of them, and we're asking them, what they can do to help us now, knowing that we've got a heavy lift in front of us going into the Big 12. There's a lot of things that we have to improve. And those that have helped out, we're asking for additional help. And then the last thing I've said to donors as I leave is there anybody else that you feel like we haven't connected to, or we need to circle back to that maybe for whatever reason has been gone for a while in terms of their financial support? And so we're getting leads that way, and getting in front of some people that we haven't been in front of in a while. So it's a long-term process. Fundraising is one of those things where it's you got to build relationships, and it can't all just be quick and to the point. But I do think in some ways the Big 12 has allowed us to call the question pretty quickly and say, hey, we could really use your support right now for our programs as we try to ramp this thing up.
Kind of a two-parter. Are you able to give somewhat of a ballpark dollar figure as where things stand now? And two, you brought up a point I was going to ask. What has maybe not the percentage been, but the reaction been from new people that you've gone to? I know in the past, prior to Big 12 and even prior to you, it seemed that we had to, for lack of a better term, continue to kind of go towards the same donor pool. Has that bigger money donor pool grown because of Big 12 current success, or are there a lot of new, whether it's because they haven't donated or been a part of this in a long time, or just brand new altogether? Is that something that you're seeing more of?
I think we're always on the lookout for people that are passionate and that can give us financial support in all kinds of ways. Sometimes that's through gifts. Sometimes that's through their time, their connections, all those different things. So we're always on the lookout for those individuals that again are just passionate about what we do. But certainly we feel like we've grown the base since in the last couple of years. We feel strongly about that. We talk about that a lot. But then we also feel like there's huge upside. And I think when I was with our fan council, David, you're a part of, I talked about this too. There's just huge upside on what we call the annual fund, which is the annual fund for us is just our everyday donor that, is a season ticket holder, or maybe they live somewhere else in the country, but they want to support, and they can support by joining UCATS at $100 a year or $100 a month or whatever it is they can do. They start down that path of being philanthropic with us and being part of UCATS, and getting UCAT points and some of those things that we talk about. And so that's really important to us too. We went from 5,500 donors to 6,500 donors this year, and we think we can get that north of 7,000-8,000 over the next couple of years, which is a really big deal for us.
I know it's not a huge impact, but we've seen a couple times this year where the fan base has kind of orchestrated these Twitter drives where there's a fun number, something happens, the final score of the Notre Dame game or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden you're seeing this influx come in from this kind of groundswell support from the fans. As a staff, is that, I know it doesn't make a huge splash and it's not producing $10 million, but is that kind of energizing to see like the fan base is engaged and we know that they want to help, and maybe a little bit more incentive to like push and maximize some of that stuff?
It is. What I love about it is it catches the momentum of the time, which that's something that is new with social media, I think, especially in some of these kind of quick fire pop-up fundraising campaigns that you can have that you couldn't have had 10 years ago. It's catching momentum, and that's so important, because that's where we're coming off a big win, and that's where that can really be useful. So it teaches us a lot. We'll go back and look at those again. We have nothing to do with them, which is kind of special in itself. It's just fan base. You guys, I know, have done those and others, but they pop up and they produce dollars, but they also tell us a story about how important it is to catch the momentum when you have it. And we're constantly thinking about new ways to try to do that internally, but keep those coming. They're really helpful, and it does mean a lot.
This has been something that's been asked in the past, but I'll tie it into, not to you personally, but just in the forum itself. Where do things in the campaign stand as far as trying to find a naming rights for the baseball stadium, or possibly obviously we're not going to change the name of Nippert Stadium, but the opportunity to naming rights for the field or things along those lines? Are those things being pursued? Are people interested in those? I know it can be an odd thing anymore with naming rights and the deals and stuff. But where do things stand, especially for baseball? I know that has been, somewhat nameless for a little while now.
Yeah, no, it's all on the table. And we're trying to be strategic about how we approach our partners on those opportunities. I do think that there are certain partners that have been with us that you almost feel like you need to give them first right of refusal on some of those. And so we're actively pursuing both of those opportunities. We do feel that we have a really special sponsorship opportunity on the field that we haven't taken advantage yet. And so that's out there, and we're actively talking to people about that. And then the naming of the baseball field, same situation. It's on the table. It's in our collection of things that we talk to people about, but we are trying to be very strategic about both of those.
The main driver of the campaign itself is the indoor practice facility performance center. Can you give a little bit more on what that dig down a little bit deeper on what that means? Obviously we understand it means football field, offices, weight room, things like that, but maybe from the performance center standpoint, what are the elements to that we're going to be seeing when that eventually gets built?
Yeah, I mean, so I will actually just start with the field itself, because I do think it's important. I think we're looking for something that fits our campus. In that corner of the campus where the bubble sits right now is very visible. So I do think it's important to point out that we're looking to build something that's going to look really nice. Some people are out and have space kind of out where no one can see it, and they can put up a barn type structure. That's not what we're looking to do. I think that the architecture on our campus is really important, and so we're going to do something that really fits the bill there. And it's going to be used by all of our sports all year round, just like the bubble is. I mean, it's constantly being used. So it is a really important space for all of athletics, and really campus can use too. So looking forward to that. And then obviously going into the performance center that will be adjacent to it, kind of the second phase of the project. There are certain things that all of these performance centers have, and we'll certainly have those. You mentioned a few. There'll be a practice locker room space, a new training area for our training staff to give medical care to our student athletes. There'll be a weight room designed for the football team to use, and they'll have the offices in there, the football offices. But then beyond that, you're also going to have a space for the team to lounge and just be together socially. And so you'll have an area there for that to occur. You'll have a team room for the team to meet collectively as a group, obviously, which takes up quite a bit of space, but is really, really important. And then we keep talking about nutritional areas and what that might look like. And obviously kind of working on something where we may be able to serve all of our student athletes in that space as well. So financial considerations have to come into play with all of this, but we're really excited about what we can bring to the table on it.
Dave wants to know, not this Dave, the Dave in the comments. Is it going where the bubble is now?
It's going where the bubble is now. Yeah. So there's actually more room than you think there. I've had people ask, because if you take the bubble and then you take where the stands of Shakely currently are and extend it out, you can extend it out into the roadway that heads toward the statue of the Bearcat, and you have quite a bit of space there. And then the other thing you have there is you have length. You have a lot of length, the whole length of a football field, to build a performance center next to the indoor facility. So it works, and it fits well within that space.
I know at Fan Council you mentioned going to a school in and around us and to tour their facility and basically saying that's not good enough for us. Are you guys going to any other locations? Are you looking at schools that have done this, say the last 5 years, to take ideas from? Or is that more on the design side based on who gets selected for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always going to look at facilities when we have a chance, and certainly the designers that we're talking to have done these facilities before. Each one of the ones that we're looking at, and we'll choose that group that we're going to work with soon, and they've all done these exact type of facilities, so they'll have their own places that they'll probably direct us to look at. But we've been to a few, and as we traveled around, I always like, we were down in Fort Worth, and obviously I've got connections to TCU, so we had a group that went over to TCU and saw theirs. And whenever we travel, over the last couple of years we've tried to, where possible, check out their facilities and what they have. And so, we've seen a lot of them. I think we all know sort of what we want, what we don't, and now we're meeting again coming up this week. We've met couple of weeks ago, but Coach Fickle and Greg Gillum from the football staff, myself and our architect are starting to get together now and talk specifics about what we're looking for, what works, what doesn't work, and those types of things.
Will there be a Bearcat Journal podcast studio in the Performance Center?
Are you offering a large donation to build it and name it?
Dave might be.
That's a bet. I mean,
yeah.
Are there going to be any of the barbershop recording studios, putt courses that we see in some of these facilities these days?
So you have met Coach Fickle, right?
So the answer is no.
Well, I
don't know.
I think we'll have some fun with it. I shouldn't say that. I think we'll have some fun with it. We'll find areas, and I think the barbershop is actually a very useful tool. They're going to spend a lot of time in and around that facility, and so I think there'll probably be a barber chair and some of those things. But we're gonna also make sure it's focused in on football, because that's who we are. So we're not veer too far away from who we are and what we're about, which is
I always feel like those things, like at Alabama, they just show them to the recruits, and then once you actually go there, no one's actually allowed to use it because you would get in trouble for not, focusing totally on football. But you tell the recruit, oh yeah, we got this thing and this thing, but no one actually ever uses them.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I've seen a couple of those examples at places I've been to, so it's going to be useful. We're not going to waste space, that's for sure.
Here's a good question, I think. What will the space in the Linder Center that football vacates be used for when the IPF is done, the 7th floor and some of the other stuff that's football specific?
Yeah, it's a great question. To be determined is the answer to that. We don't know exactly what we'll do in that space. We haven't had a lot of discussions about specifics about that. We just know we're going to have a lot more space. And we know that we have teams that need upgrades in locker rooms and upgrades in offices. And so that will just allow us to take some of those projects on too. So, but no specific decisions yet.
You probably don't even know about this. Is that hockey stadium happening? Did you see that? The club hockey team mocked up a picture of what the armory would look like with a hockey ice in there, and it got a bunch of buzz on Twitter. But this is news to you. You're not aware of this.
I'm not aware of it, but the armory is something that we, as a university, I know that they're talking about, and it's a large space, obviously adjacent to everything that we do. So we need to figure out how that works into the long-term plan of the university, not just the athletics department, the university.
Speaking of kind of facilities in general, what other areas? I know there's been discussion of women's athletic locker rooms need to be done as well. Baseball, new scoreboard, things like that. What other areas can you speak on as far as those go, as part of the overall fund and just fundraising in general?
Yeah, I mean, you always have projects and things that you need to upgrade, but obviously the scoreboard in baseball is one that stands out. It's not to the level that we should be at and associate ourselves with, and so that's something that we're actively looking at and trying to get resolved as quickly as we can. But there's other projects and things that we've talked about. Like I said, locker room spaces for several different sports. that just need to be upgraded and advanced. So we'll be checking those off the list. But there's always things that you've got to improve and get better. And then there's a lot of maintenance things too that you've got to be paying attention to. I mean, we've got, field replacements that need to take place every so often, and those aren't cheap either. So we've got to be paying attention to all that stuff.
Where do things stand currently with the, I guess we can call it the game day football locker room?
Yeah, I was just asking. I need to get down there and have another look at it. But
and Chad, John told us at the last fan council meeting that we're going to get a sneak peek of that.
Nice.
When it's done. So I'm definitely holding that to him.
Yeah.
Can I request a tour guide?
Sure.
I request Zach Tobler as our tour guide.
Gosh, that looks sharp, guys. That I having been at Minnesota, that ice.
Are you in? You're in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I don't know what they want to do.
I don't know if you can do that for a club sport.
Yeah. Yeah. You could put all kinds of things on top of the ice too.
Yeah.
So
looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, the football locker room project is coming along from everything I hear. I got to get back down there. I was down in Fort Worth last week, so I got to go down and just walk it, check it out. But I know that they're working hard to get that thing done. It's going to be really, really nice and should be.
Do you even know Tobes is down there?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if he snuck that in on you or if that was your go-to guy when you go down there. I've seen him. There's no better Bearcat than Zach Tobler.
Yeah, I know. We can. He's one of several people down there that could give a full tour, the ins and outs of the Linder building, and yeah, for sure.
Speaking of being in Fort Worth, how was that experience for the first basketball tournament down there? How did you think that ran, the arena, everything along those lines?
Yeah, were you guys both down there?
I was not. I was back here covering spring football.
Yeah. So
priorities. I don't want to get yelled at by Coach Vic.
Well, listen, I've got a connection to that town because I went to school there and then worked there for 5 years. I love Fort Worth as a town, as a city to visit. I think the people that were down there had a good time. It was tough. It was tough for us, right? We were just down there for the Cotton Bowl. It's a hard sell to go back down for the basketball tournament just a few weeks later. And we had a lot of Cotton Bowl fans that went Cotton Bowl Super Bowl back to back. And so, their travel budget and just time away from home was kind of taken up in the football realm, which is totally understandable. But I do think we'll be back there next year. I would love to get more fans. We talked about kind of trying to push that to get more fans down there because it does make a big difference when you play in that tournament. And I know traditionally, you guys can speak to it. Traditionally, we've always had a large number of fans that go to the conference tournament. The conference tournament for a hoops junkie is the absolute best because you get so much basketball, and it's all really high level. Obviously, win or go home type play. So I thought the tournament was ran really well. I think the venue is spectacular. It's a brand new venue. You'll see it this weekend because it's hosting the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament. But with that said, I don't think I think that the attendance was disappointing. I think, the AAC would say that a number of factors played into that. But I do think it has potential to be just outstanding. And so I hope people come down next year.
Here's a question we see a lot, so I'll just ask. Addition of sports when you get into the Big 12. I know it's a kind of hot topic button around college sports right now. More sports, less sports from the non-revenue side. Are there any doors that open because the Big 12 is strong in a particular area where you guys might be able to look into, or are those talks that just kind of haven't happened yet?
The latter. They're talks that just haven't happened. That I have talked about the fact that when we spoke to Commissioner Bowlesby and the group from the Big 12, one of our questions that we had is does our sport offerings right now fit within the Big 12, or do we need to look to add anything? And they said we do not have to add anything. So they were fine with the sports that we offered. So I think right now we're in good shape. You just never know where things go, and obviously I hear about those sports and others a lot, and you monitor sort of what's going on around the country, and if there's an opportunity that makes sense to add a sport down the line, then certainly we'll look at it.
That women's gymnastics is a good, like, if you watch, I don't know what it's like in the Big 12. I watch some of those SEC gymnastics matches that my daughter's in. She's 11. She's into that kind of thing. Those things are like a party. Like, they're wild. There's 20,000 people there. It's crazy.
They kill. Utah does too, and some other places they've turned it into you talk about revenue sports. That's become a revenue sport at a lot of different schools. So, I know it's wild, especially in the SEC.
I'm sure while down in Fort Worth, there were ongoing discussions about the current situation in the AAC, when we will be leaving. I'm not going to ask you to say like when that's going to happen, but
I'll just ask him, Dave. Let's do it.
I already know the answer. I don't ask questions I already know the answers to. But are we getting closer to kind of a point where a decision needs to be made? How close do you think we are to that point?
Yeah, I think we have a little while still, but you're right. I mean, the clock is ticking, so we continue to have discussions. I think people that have been involved in negotiations and these types of discussions know as time winds down, people get closer and closer to coming together, and so that's where I think that we'll end up being. But it's just going to take a little while, and we'll keep those lines of communication open. And it was reported, and it's true, we had a good conversation with Commissioner Oresco this past week down in Fort Worth, and so those communications will continue.
Are the three schools negotiating this as a collective, or are you guys doing this school by school?
We're having the conversation together. Yeah.
Okay. I guess, how does that work then, as far as you obviously have to still figure that part out, but you're still having conversations with the Big 12 as far as how things are going to look as whenever it is that we join? Is like, kind of take us inside of that a little bit, how that dynamic works of kind of playing both sides.
Well, we will be in the Big 12 no later than 2024, which really is in our world in a lot of ways right around the corner. So we've gotten really good information from the Big 12. They've brought us in to certain meetings that make sense to bring us into, there's discussions that are being had now that will certainly impact us when we arrive in the Big 12, whenever that is. And so I give a lot of credit to Commissioner Bowlesby and the other ADs in the Big 12 for inviting us in and giving us some really good information and letting us have a say in some of the decisions that will impact us down the line.
Scheduling wise, let's just go with football. Where do you think that goes when the teams are added to the Big 12? Obviously, right now they play round robin that isn't going to continue, can't continue. So are you a proponent of 8 versus 9? Are you a proponent of divisions versus no divisions? Where do you personally, from a UC standpoint, stand on those things, and maybe where do you think those things are heading?
Those are honestly, David, those decisions haven't been made, and that's exactly the questions that are being contemplated. And there's different sides to those considerations. So I don't know where it will ultimately head. Number one, I think personally, and I haven't really talked to Coach Fickle in depth about this yet, but I think personally I'm in favor of 9 Big 12 games. I think it helps us with our television contract as we negotiate that to start in 25. And I maybe it's because I'm used to 9 games, having been in the Big Ten and scheduling 3 non-conference. I've always kind of thought that model worked well, so for whatever reason, I think that would make some sense. But at the end of the day, there may be other considerations that I'm not privy to right now, and other things that come into it, and we may end up at 8. I don't know.
Where do you stand on divisions? Is that something you are for and think will happen with the 12 teams?
I haven't, perfectly honest, I haven't thought a lot about it, and haven't taken the time to really dive in on what that would mean. So I would say I don't have a strong opinion either way right now.
Obviously, the money element of the media rights is what gets talked about the most when you're comparing the Big 12 to the AAC. But what elements of that do most fans not know, or that would be interesting to know about, as maybe as far as second and third tier, or just how that is all worked out differently from what we're accustomed to right now, besides just there's going to be more money? And
yeah, I don't know if it's a lot. It's not a lot different than what we're accustomed to in terms of what's out there in the market. In terms of your first tier, second tier, how you sell football, how you sell basketball, all those things. It's kind of all the same. It's just at a different level, and that's what we've been talking about for a long time. Is how do we crack that code to get into that financial category, because it just means so much to your department, and it means so much to your institution to be able to have that backing of a large television contract. So I feel really good about what things are going to look like in 2025, and the reports that we continue to get are very positive about the direction that will go. So I'll let others handle the details of the negotiations, but I think we're in good hands, and I think we're going to be in a really good spot.
Will you see and the other new members have a full share when they start, or will it be kind of a tiered thing that we've seen in some conferences?
So those are conversations that we're not addressing at this point.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know where Chad went, but so let's see here.
Sorry, back in just a sec.
Let me see if there's any questions here we haven't hit yet. Do you see soccer? What I know there's been, went away, and do you think that that's something that could come back, or are we still in the same area we were?
Yeah, I'll kind of go back to what I said. I mean, I think that I do think the Big 12 changes our situation. I certainly feel strongly that if and when we look to add a sport, I'm going to lean heavily toward looking at getting men's soccer back, because that's going to be important to me. But it's got to be the right time, and things have to fall into line. But you have Title IX considerations and others. But if and when we look to add a sport, that's going to be at the top of my list for sure.
So year one of the Wes Miller era complete. You hired a great human. He did a really good job with this team. Obviously, they had some adversity that they had to battle down the stretch. But what is your takeaway after 11 months now of getting to know Wes Miller as the head of your basketball program?
Just feel very, very comfortable with him in that role, and I think authenticity is the thing that has struck me. You do hire somebody, you have a Zoom call like this and an in-person interview, and you talk to as many people as you possibly can, and people that have known him for a short time, a long time, people that have played for him, all those types of things were conversations that we had. and they all said the same thing, but you never really know until you're around somebody every day. And he's just very, very consistent and very authentic. So when he steps up to the mic, he did a press conference the other day, or whenever he does that, I think you guys probably feel it. I certainly, when I see him, I think that he's just speaking from the heart, and that's who he is, and it's honestly who he is at all times, and so that's really impressive. And so just feel very comfortable. That's what you want to feel as an AD, with all of your head coaches, but especially those high profile head coaches. You want to feel comfortable every day that you got somebody in there that's taking care of business, and taking care of your student athletes.
With Luke, I'm curious, do you ever learn anything watching him, like how he's been able to, continue to push the staff forward? A lot of coaches struggle with, they have their vision for what they want their staff to be when they get hired. In football, clearly it's a transient business. Do you take anything from watching the way he handles it? I know there's always a tie, like with Gino and Mike Cummings. They worked together at Central Michigan when Gino was a grad assistant. I know Darren Page had a history with Brian Mason, who's now at Notre Dame. Do you take anything from that as a leader, watching the way that he's handled that situation and never panics, and always seems to kind of have a pulse on how to get better, even though it's easy to kind of sulk when you lose somebody? He doesn't seem to really do that.
Yeah, I do. I learn a lot from him. I learn a lot from a lot of people in our department, but especially from him, because he is such a dynamic leader of people. And it's so cliche, but if you were going to go to battle, I guess maybe with what's going on in other parts of the world, you think about that. But I saw a documentary about Eisenhower recently, and just what does it take to really be a leader of people, and he has that. And I think, to your point, Chad, it is that courage to take on the really difficult decisions, and not put it on anybody else. I think that's what really impresses me. You'll never hear him with excuses, but you'll also never hear him try to get away from a really difficult decision or a tough problem. He takes it on head on, and kind of protects his people from those, and deals with it really in a unique way. I hope that makes some sense. It makes sense in my head. Yeah. But he, and I think the other thing I take away from him too is just the stress of his job, at times the stress of my job, or anybody else's department, but just his ability to put family first. And that's really important, and I've certainly learned that, having young kids, that don't try your very best not to take it home, and family's always first.
I think what stands out to me, and I'm interested in your thought on this, is kind of what I mentioned, in that for like a lot of guys in that position, it's my way or the highway, right? Like I don't think he had a previous relationship with Mike Cummings, but Gino did. He didn't have a previous relationship with Darren Page, but Brian Mason did. He didn't have a previous relationship with Mike Brown, but there was somebody else on the staff. Like it impresses me that he knows he's going to make the decision, and it's going to be on him, but it shows a lot of leadership to trust the guys that work for you in, is this person going to be a good fit? Obviously they come in for an interview, and Luke gets to vet them and the whole 9 yards. But I think it creates a lot of ownership amongst the staff to know, like, the boss is listening. And if I have a good idea, or if I have somebody I think can help us get better, I can go to Luke and say, this is what I think I've got for this. And I think it empowers everybody. I think it's a situation that makes guys feel more invested, feel like they're more of the decision-making process than just an assistant or whatever the case may be. And to me, that's what impresses me.
Yeah, I think that's a great assessment of That was a better answer than I gave, Chad. Like, can we switch? No, but it's a really good assessment of who he is and how that office runs. And I think you're 100% right. I mean, there's not a lot of drama down there too. I think that's another thing that I've always been impressed with, because having been around a number of different staffs, but his staff, it's business and business and family, and that's the core, and that's the simple way he runs things, and that's every day.
You feeling any heat to take the athletic department on a vacation to Cancun?
Yeah. Well, we know they were deserving. We know everybody that was there was deserving of it, because it's a heck of a grind, and to go through COVID and then to have to lose 2 games in 2 years to Georgia and Alabama, that's deserving of getting in some sun and having some fun.
Couple of user questions real quick, Dave. What surprised you about being an athletic director for the first time since you took the job?
I've said this before. I think the volume of the job, and what I mean by that is just, you're constantly having something else walk through the door, and they're big problems, and everybody's got something that they're working on, and so you got 18 sports and 430 student athletes and about 200 staff members, and so just the volume of it, trying to keep all the balls up in the air at the same time, and make sure that you're hitting on the big stuff first, but then also taking care of everybody in a really fair way. That's probably what struck me.
And here's the hot button of the day in college sports. What changes or adjustments, adaptments, evolution would you like to see with name, image, and likeness?
Yeah,
it's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. Somebody asked me what's the biggest thing on my plate right now. We've got a lot, but NIL is probably number one, just because it has such large implications on how we do business in the amateurism model, and are we going into some sort of post-amateurism world, especially in football and men's basketball. But I think the way that we've handled it has been appropriate. I think, to me, it works well when your star players, those that are bringing a lot of value to the university, are the ones that are benefiting from the sponsorship market. And that's Dez is the perfect example of how that worked this year for us, which is he was the star quarterback on a team ranked in the top 10, bringing tremendous value to the university, and marketers, sponsors wanted him to promote their product and service and use his name, image, and likeness. And for that, he had several national deals and some local deals, and he had an agent that ran everything. And so everything went through the agent to kind of keep him focused in on football. And that's the exact way this thing is supposed to work. But the way it's not supposed to work is it's not supposed to be payment of recruits coming in and enticement, inducement of recruits. And once you start doing that, it has nothing to do with the market forces. It just has to do with whose boosters are crazy enough to pay large sums of money. And I really hope we don't go down that path. And I hope that some of the rumors out there aren't true. But certainly, we're going to be who we are, and we're going to come up with ways to support our student athletes and find some unique ways to do that through camps and through different appearances and through a group we just met today with Empower again, and Empower was the group that did that really cool Skyline commercial for our offensive line. And that's the exact thing that we want to do. We want to do really high level marketing for our student athletes and put them in a position where they have to learn to be a professional in order to be paid, and help them long term, because they've learned a new aspect of being an adult going forward. So it's a tricky proposition, though. It's not easy, and we got to take some control and some ownership of it.
Any expansions in the plan for roles of spirit squads, cheer, dance band with the move to the Big 12?
I don't know expansion. I love our groups. You know, obviously national championship level dance team and cheer and mascot and our band is just really important to us and strong. I thought they were the driver to us beating ECU down in Fort Worth. You know, we didn't have a lot of fans and our band was just fantastic behind the basket and made a difference in the game. And I told them that after the game. And so that was really cool that pep band being down there. But I don't know about differences Big 12 wise. I also know that Anthony DeFino, who really does our game day presentation stuff, our marketing people do it, but he has a lot of say in that. Is a huge proponent of band. He'd rather go to band playing than canned music, and I can't agree with him anymore. So I know that we're going to continue to lean on our band in terms of our game day production.
Teams obviously have goals. What are your goals personally and maybe also as a department for, say, the next 12 months?
Yeah, we had 5 themes that we worked on for the last 18 months is kind of how we developed it. And I felt like that was a really important time period. I call it the restart. So as I've met with our staff, and they're probably sick of me saying it because I keep repeating it over and over, but just to focus in on 5 kind of just real straightforward themes: fundraising, storytelling, a sustainable budget, just growth in different ways. And so that was what we're really focused in on. And then now we feel like going into the Big 12, we've got a chance to take a step back and really look at a strategic plan. Got through COVID, got done with what I call the restart for 18 months, and now we have this brand new horizon with the Big 12 coming around. And so we have formed a group called Big 12 Beginnings. It's staff members in the athletics department, an array of staff members, and we'll get together and we're going to plan out a strategic plan for a 2-year, 4-year, and 6-year goals, and make sure that we continue to meet those goals and keep pushing forward. But obviously, for us, that means winning conference championships, making NCAA tournaments, continuing our strong academics. We have such a strong academic program under Dr. Lucky that has to be part of who we are and what we do. Working on diversity, equity, inclusion, and working on the mental health of our student athletes are for sure going to be part of what we're about.
All right. I think we've occupied enough of your time. We appreciate you being so generous with that. It's the kids must have been pretty tuckered out from running around and playing outside all day.
I think they were. I think they, and usually once they hit their books, they'll stay reading for a while and then eventually fall asleep. So, but they're locked into the NCAA tournament. It is the best time of year. Again, I wish we were there, but it is a celebration of college athletics nonetheless. And so I hope everybody enjoys watching some basketball.
Before you go, real quick, can you plug the Red and Black Gala and what people, I know we talked about it in fan council, but there's a lot of cool opportunities there and everything along those lines. Give you a couple minutes to do that.
Thank you, David. I meant to talk about April 29th. We're having the Red and Black Gala. Should be an awesome event. There's a sign up online, and also we'll be sending out emails, and you'll see tweets and different social media push there too. But it's just going to be a fun time. We'll have our head coaches there. We'll really just celebrate the year that was and what we're about and where we're going to be going into the Big 12. So just another opportunity to celebrate as Bearcats. So would really encourage people to be a part of that event. And we'll have a live auction, some really cool live auction items and
throwback uniforms for those.
Yep. That's gonna be part. Yep.
Addicted to the Jordan brand stuff.
Yeah, if you want the throwback, buy your Red and Black Gala tickets and make sure you're a part of that. So,
I guess then now we have to ask you about that, right? What's the apparel deal? Where are we at in that situation? You almost got out with us without us asking.
Well, yeah, and I'm kind of talking. I mean, just continue to have conversations and really good ones. We've got somebody that we're working with closely who does these all over the country, and so he's helping us obviously navigate those waters. Difficult time for these companies just because of all the supply chain issues that they're having. And so I was talking to some other ADs that are coming up on their sideline apparel, and they're saying the same thing, which is it's been a little bit difficult to pin some of these individuals down just because they're really struggling to get their shoes and clothing to the U.S. and get it out. But nonetheless, we've got a couple conversations coming up. I'll be going down to the Final Four in New Orleans, and I'm hoping to have some meetings down there. So we continue to have good discussions.
Is there a rough timeline, or is it still open?
Still open. We have some, again, Under Armour has been a really good partner, and we have some time with our purchase agreement with Under Armour, and so that allows us to have be able to kind of time the market as best we can. So we're under no pressure, but at the same time we're exploring. That's probably the best way to say it.
All right, that's a great way to leave it. That's one of those things. For me, I'm not a uni geek. It doesn't really register much. They wear what they wear. The final score is kind of what matters. But there's a lot of people that are very invested in the way that goes. So, all right, John, it is muchly appreciated. You gave us a great hour of your time, and when we couldn't be more thankful. And I will see you soon. Maybe stop down and watch spring practice with us one day.
Absolutely, we'll do. Love what you guys do. You bring a lot to the table for the Bearcats, so keep doing it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it, John.
Yep.
There you go. Name me another team site that just randomly gets an hour with the AD over spring break.
Probably not any.
I don't think so either. So especially huge thanks to him for carving out some time tonight. We both have talked to him separately, and he said he would be glad to join us. Just name the time and the date, and usually that's not how it goes. I almost screwed it up, Dave. I booked it for Thursday. You're not going to be in town tomorrow.
I'm not.
So I hit John back and said, "Can you do Wednesday?" He said, "Actually, Wednesday works better for me."
There you go.
And I said, "All right." So there you go. That was really good stuff, and an insight into a lot of things. He's still very cautious at times on things, but I think as he's grown into the role, he's opened up and is a lot more comfortable in what he talks about, how he talks about it, how he messages it. Like, you can tell he's grown in from new AD because he was a brand new athletic director. He was thrown into a lot of fire with everything that went on in his first 2 years on the job. But I think he's finding his stride as well. And he's been great to work with.
Well, and it's a tough deal when the questions that the most people want answers to, he can't give them right now, whether it's because we don't know 100% or like he can't talk about certain things Big 12 related but that's what people want to know. So like we still have to kind of ask, and then it's up to him how he wants to answer it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think, I just think we're just kind of in this,
loosen up, Dave. I got to put the hat back on backwards. Yeah. I got to unbutton the shirt.
We're just in that
boss
limbo,
left.
In that limbo period where we've known that we're going to the Big 12 for such a long time, but yet we don't know when. So it feels like it could still be 2024. I mean, we all hope not, and we don't think it will. But we're in that time where there's no news, Big 12 related. And
right.
Let's be real. No one gives a rip about the AAC anymore, whether it's the conference basketball tournament, the football, old news. But
Dave, hold on. I forgot to do something, Dave.
What's that?
That is a timestamp.
Oh.
And the timestamp is brought to you by our good friends, our new good friends, our brand new good friends. You ready?
Yes.
Urban Artifact
Nice.
is now the proud sponsor of the timestamps right here on Bearcat Journal. Their tap room is located in Northside, 1660 Blue Rock Street, open Wednesday through Sunday. Pizza kitchen on site. Beers are sold online, shipping to select states, and currently distribute to 13 states with more on the way. Check the website to see if your state is one. Did you know they use 700,000 pounds of real fruit every year in Urban Artifact beer, Dave?
It's a lot of fruit.
Yeah, but so when do we actually get the Urban Artifacts to all lift up at the same time as a cheers for the timestamp? Is what I
We're
want.
working on that. We're working
Awesome.
on that.
Can't wait.
You need to send me the Athens address. I don't have the Athens address.
I got you.
And I'm gonna have them ship a package. Dave and I are gonna get a day to go out to the North Side location and get our goodies, and we'll get some shipped out to you. We'll get some shipped out to Brent. How are we? And happy to have another awesome new partner joining us here at Bearcat Journal, Urban Artifact, the proud new sponsor of the timestamp. And that is your first timestamp of the show. Exactly 1 hour with John Cunningham. So, what's that say?
Pocket watch is my shit, Chelsea says. Apparently that's a beer at Urban Artifact.
I'm looking. The Gadget, Spyglass, Teak. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Xmas Pickle. There's a bunch. We're gonna have to.
Aaron, wait, Urban Artifact timestamp. It doesn't tell anybody what the. It's a 1 minute timestamps. Urban Artifact timestamp.
Well, that it's a special.
We don't. Oh, there's the John Cunningham timestamp. Okay,
Yeah, the John Cunningham timestamp was
it
up
went
here.
too fast. Too many comments, and I missed it.
So super happy to have Urban Artifact on board. Jeffrey, first time checking out live, huge fan of the pods. Keep it up, homies. We got you, man. We got you. There's nobody. We are going to start putting the timestamps in the podcast show notes in some way, shape, or form. Yes. Aaron, just write this down on a piece of paper, all the timestamps, and email them to me when we're done. I'll put them in the show. Let's get to the other news of the day, Dave. Basketball.
NFL free agency started.
That is not for this. Are there
okay.
Are there Bearcat free agents?
Kevin Huber's a free agent.
Has he signed anywhere?
No, he has not.
All right, then what are we going to talk about?
I'm kidding.
Working on training up to getting links for the timestamps. Bear with us. Aaron's trying to become Facebook and Google and YouTube certified. He's going to be a master of all this stuff here soon. We're getting there. Bear with us. Yeah. No, we don't have any UC free agents right now except Huber. And that's it. You need to get on PTP. Like they're dying for the Dave show.
They have to invite me.
I mean, they don't. I can just send you the link and you can just pop in the studio. Like, hey guys, I'm here.
No,
let's talk.
That would be rude.
Yeah. When have you ever shied away from being rude before?
No, it wouldn't be. I promise. It's a party over there. You just have to be ready to keep up.
It's something. They had a 2-hour guest last night.
Oh, who is that?
Clay Snowden. He's a Reds guy.
What the hell do you have to talk about the Reds for 2 hours?
Oh, there's plenty to bitch. Like I could bitch about the Reds for 2 hours right now. Yeah. Trust me. There's nothing good to talk about. There's plenty to bitch about.
Well, yeah.
Well, we talked CBA and broke that all down. We talked the moves that they've been making and all of that. So it was a lot, you know.
Did you talk about how my team's owner got his own tax bracket named after him?
I don't know who your team is, if I'm being
The
honest.
He's a Mets fan.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me then at all. I should have actually known when you said that, but gross. Congratulations on having an owner who gives a shit, but
Well, I mean, he does have roughly 12 or 15 billion dollars to his name, so
I hear that's a lot. I'll never know what that actually feels like, but I hear that's
No.
a lot.
no.
It's a lot more than Banana Bob with his. He's only worth half a
400,
billion.
400 million.
Yeah, and that's very poor, I'm told, in baseball terms.
It's last.
It's last, yeah. Don't buy a team if you're
Don't get me
not going to
started.
spend the money. Anyhow,
Yes.
really, really happy to have Urban Artifact on board, and every time there's a timestamp, you'll be hearing about Urban Artifact. So go support them, please, because they are now not only sponsoring
Drink beer.
the BCJ podcast, they're also sponsoring the BBP. They're our first cross-show
Oh, wow.
sponsor. They're in on both. That's how much
Big
they
time.
believe in us. Thanks to Scotty, who's been a long-time member. And we have been in talks about this behind the scenes for a little while. And they decided to jump on board today. I said, send me a read, and we'll get you going tonight. Like, we don't waste time here at Bearcat Journal.
No.
If you're in, you're in. If you're on the team, you're on
Especially
the
if
team.
you're food or beverage.
Yes, food or beverage, we are very big on. Very big on. We're also big on transmissions. Speaking of transmissions, how about a transition to basketball, where we had the start of the offseason, essentially, for the Cincinnati Bearcats. As Mason Madsen entered the transfer portal, I kind of hinted at this as a possibility last night. I think there will be another transfer portal entry within the next 12 to 18 hours. It is not one that people are thinking of, but it is in terms of, remember how everybody has just assumed those 3 scholarships are opening up to make room for the 3 players that are incoming, the 3 freshmen? One was 2 guys that can't play college basketball anymore. The other was a guy that was a walk-on and moved to scholarship. And I'm guessing in the next 24 hours, to keep this in the circle of trust, we'll probably see Rob Banks in the transfer portal, which is still one of my favorite names, Dave. Rob Banks. It's like a directive. It's not a name. It's telling you what to do with your weekend.
That's right.
Rob Banks. The legend of Rob Banks,
Banksy.
probably coming to an end. I wish him well. Aaron, Wright State wins. Congratulations. Sell the team, Bob.
I think they were underseeded.
They scored a lot of points, or their opponent was very bad at defense.
Paul Bear, Ben Bryant.
Right. Any plans to upload nightcaps to your podcast accounts? At the time being, no. We're trying to grow the YouTube channel. And if we put the nightcaps on the podcast accounts, then nobody has to watch the YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel so I can pay Aaron and he can eat, because he doesn't get to eat much. So
Well, he can drink all this free Urban Artifact beer
he's going to
now,
get free Urban Artifacts.
so, well, I don't see the problem.
There's fruit in it. Like, that's got to count as food in some way, shape, or form,
Carbs,
right?
water.
Right? It's got to count for something. Anywho, Dave. One player in the portal. The offseason for basketball has begun. Initial thoughts.
Never, I never want to see guys leave our program in any sport, because that typically means that they, something not to their expectations happen. Like, you
Right.
don't see guys entering the transfer portal if everything's going great, whether that's the team's not winning, they're not getting the playing time that they hoped for, So it's unfortunate. At the same time, I think there can be a disconnect with certain fans that, like, if we say, like, they need to upgrade the roster, that isn't at the same time being like this person is a trash human being. Like, you can say, like, personally, if we're in the circle of trust here, I think there needs to be quite a few more transfers. If our expectation is to compete in the hopefully lone remaining year in the AAC, if our expectation is to compete for a championship, I don't see that happening as currently constructed. And if our expectation is to go into the Big 12 and be competitive, I think it would be unrealistic to say we're going to the Big 12 and compete for a championship with the likes of Kansas and Baylor and those programs.
Right, but that's a league you can finish 6th and make the tournament comfortably.
Easily, right. So compete in the league. Don't get your doors blown off like when we entered the Big East.
This is not the American where 3 teams maybe are getting in. Like SMU got left out. 2 teams got in.
So
this is a league where 6, 7, 8 teams are getting in. Figure out a way to get in.
I understand that you don't want these massive roster turnovers. Part of me says there's no better time to have one with a first-year coach than in the hopeful last year of a mediocre conference. So get it out of the way now. Get the dudes you need in. Get them a year under their belt, and then you're rolling into a much tougher conference where you don't feel like you're doing it with an arm tied behind your back. And that's it's not a great thing to have to say. But I'm just being truthful about it. Like, we've talked all year that this team has a lot of role guys, no stars, no dudes.
Right.
And if you just kind of come back with the same group next year, that doesn't really change. You're asking role guys to become stars, and I just don't see that, because you can't expect the 3 freshmen to come in and be stars. If that happens, great, but you can't expect it. You can't be counting on it. So you can't then say we're just going to basically bring back the same unit and expect guys that are, do maybe one thing pretty good, but aren't a complete player, to all of a sudden become someone that can propel UC from where they finished this year in the league to competing for a NCAA tournament bid.
Yeah, if competing with whoever's at the top of the league next year, I wonder about Houston for next year, but their culture is still going to exist. Like, there's been years we looked at mixed roster and we're like, I don't know if they're going to compete at the top of the league next year, and then they competed at the top of the league.
Yeah.
That will probably be the case again next year, even with the significant losses that they will have. Sure. They are still sitting atop the throne until you knock them off, right?
Yeah. And that's the problem with the league, and why I say do this now is this team could have a better year. And if it has a SMU type year, you still don't get in the tournament, I would go, man, we could have used that year. And I don't want to say waste, and that's not fair to the coaches and the players, and they don't look at it that way. And you should never just give up on a year because something else in college sports, you should never do that, because then you're building something for the next year. But like, if we take an incremental improvement next year and still don't make the tournament, I think that really puts them in a bad spot going into the Big 12. And
Well, I mean, I'm not putting on this team's back like next year's tournament or bust.
I'm not either, but I'm saying.
Well, that's what you just said, kind of.
No, I'm saying it puts them in a bad spot for the Big 12 because
maybe unless the roster comes together and they're one
no,
of the.
But all those guys would then be gone when you enter the Big 12 and you're starting over with a brand new roster. That's why I'm saying do that now.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, but it'll be interesting. I still think the sweet spot for making this roster significantly better for next year is 3 minimum, maybe 4. I don't think you want to go any higher than that.
No, I'm on the and I guess if you let me do the number. I don't want to,
So there's 10 guys on the roster.
I don't want to piss anybody off.
One of them is in the transfer portal.
You know me, I really don't care, but if you follow me on my personal Twitter, you might have an idea, but I keep that stuff off the Bearcat Journal one. That's
Those are your thoughts, not company thoughts.
Exactly. But obviously Mason is already in the portal. You mentioned Rob. I think if I think they're maximizing the opportunity, I would look at 3 more. Now, do we get there? I don't know, but that's just the way I view it.
I think 3 is the most likely number. 4 is
3 more in addition to these
3
2?
total.
Oh,
3 total. Well, but Rob's already accounted for.
Right.
So you have 1 open. I think 2 more is the most likely number, with a possibility of 3 more.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you're saying Rob's accounted for, then 3 more. That's what I want.
2 more is what I think is most likely.
Yeah. Well,
3 more wouldn't shock me, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Hi, Kestrel Wraith. How you doing? Good to have you.
It's Jeff.
Appreciate you joining us. Oh, hi, Jeff. How you doing, buddy?
But you can't. I understand. You can't totally just gut it.
And there are some pieces, and look, like let's say hypothetically, right? 2 of the pieces you bring back are, we know John Newman's coming back. I got a good feeling listening to Wes yesterday that will probably, I think the odds are more than 50% we see David Julius come back. Right? I think that's just the sense I got from listening to him talk. Those 2 guys graduate next, they're out of eligibility.
Right.
So there's another already immediately 2 spots. No telling what happens with, if there are 3 spots that you bring in.
One of them might be a grad transfer.
Now you're looking at 3, and then transfer portal, you're looking at another 1 or 2, because let's face it, there's going to be 2 to 3 transfers every year. Every year. The days of Mick going 2 or 3 seasons without a transfer or 1 transfer is over. That's not how it works anymore. So you're already looking 5 spots for next year.
The one kid that I noticed, the Princeton kid,
Jalen Llewellyn.
The kid enters the portal and half of the country is interested.
Well, that was also a high major kid that went to Princeton for academics, obviously.
But I'm just saying, if that's happening, everybody, tons of. I mean, that's the thing. Is right now, I saw today is why are you even paying attention to the portal right now? Almost. I mean, you know how many hundreds of kids are going to be in it before this is all said and done.
Well, you're paying attention right now because this is the first wave, and the first wave is important.
Well, I mean, the coaches are I'm you have all the teams that are still in the tournament that are going to have 1 or 2 kids.
Well, but and here's the thing I'll tell you with the portal.
They already
By the
know.
time for the kids that are good enough, let's say that. For the kids that are good enough, by the time they enter the portal, they are 75% of the way through the process.
Yeah.
And by that, what I mean is they've had their trainer, their AAU coach, whatever, reaching out for a considerable amount of time already, right? And they know who's interested, who they're going to consider. And most of the time from there, it's going to come down to, okay, I've got 3 options. 2 of them are probably realistic, right? I'm going to visit and I'm going to make my decision. And that's the way this thing kind of works. Like, just inside, I'm not going to give names because and this isn't really even from a UC perspective. It's just from doing AAU circuit for, 10, 12 years. Like, you have guys, guys you talk to, guys that call, guys that, want to see what the landscape is like. There were 3 guys in the past 36 hours that entered the portal today that I knew were entering the portal at least 5 days ago. It got a call 5 days ago. What's it look like out there? Such and such is probably, when the season's over, such and such is probably gonna be in the portal. If I know that, and this is my point in telling that story, if I know that, think what coaches know. Like, think a step ahead of how many coaches have been contacted. Like,
For sure.
hey, would you be interested? What do you think? And then feelers get put out, and then the teams that are interested push things further. Teams that aren't interested kind of let it go by the wayside. Like, it's I don't want to say it's the Wild West. They're
It's free
NIL
agency.
deals.
It's
Yeah,
free
it's
agency.
free agency.
It's almost like the NFL in the tampering window. Like, the Bengals worked real hard to sign Alex Kappa 7 seconds after the tampering.
They talked to their agent. They
Window
talked
opened
to
up on Monday. I mean,
they talked to his agent for 6 seconds. Had a deal.
just
and
knew exactly the parameters they both wanted. I mean, unbelievable good work by all involved.
That's how this shit works now. Like, I'm just trying to help, like, open the window for people, for our members to understand. Like, most of the time, when a kid hits the portal, he is 75% of the way done with the process. That's just the reality of it. There are some that maybe they don't have, the right, they didn't have the right support system coming up. They didn't play for a big AAU team, and then they went out and blew up at a mid-major or whatever. Those guys maybe don't have as many people in their corner working for them. But there's 5 or 6 players that are prominent players in the NCAA tournament that I know when their season ends, they will be entering the transfer portal.
Right.
And that has nothing to do with UC. That is just the way this shit works. This guy didn't feel he got a fair shake, or even if he's a prominent player on a protected seed in the tournament, feels like it's not the right situation for him. And, he wants to go somewhere, and instead of being the 4th guy on the tournament team, he's looking to go somewhere and be the guy.
Yeah.
So buckle up. Like, the NI deals are most of the way solidified, Jeff. For some, yeah, sure. For some, that's not how most of this works yet. But
no, I
for
think
some,
most of it is, it's still in playing and relationships.
Yeah.
A guy that is transferring for whatever reason is more likely than not going to go somewhere where there's already a relationship, because they feel comfortable. Like, this guy recruited me. This guy, I've known him a long time. He didn't recruit me because he was at this school and, I wasn't good enough to go there. But now I've progressed a ton and we had a good relationship, but it just didn't work out. Like, the old school mercenaries, that, just go to the team that has the best chance to win and doesn't know anybody. Like, that's few and far between. Like, I think most of these transfers are built on already existing relationships.
Correct. That's and look, like UC football is no greater example, right? Almost every transfer they have landed in the transfer portal era is a kid that has some kind of relationship to the staff, to a player, to somebody in the program that can vouch for the kid. Right? Like, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I can't really explain it any other way. Like, there's so much back channel stuff that goes on.
Well, you've already had an experience that did not live up to expectations. It's just human nature to want to go somewhere where you feel comfortable because you already know a staff member or guys on the roster or something that you feel like that's going to give you a positive impact from the start.
And here's something to think about. Just something to ponder, right? I get the sense Wes knew every kid in North Carolina. Just the ways that, like, when names from North Carolina have popped up already on the radar.
He's almost like Luke, though. I mean, he's been there, he was there so long. He went straight from playing
college into coaching.
Into coaching
10 years
and was in Greensboro for 10 years. So
yeah. And he had a great eye for talent at Greensboro. There's a lot of guys he was in on early, sophomore, junior year, that blew up and
like
are now.
You mean like Gary Clark?
Correct. Gary Clark being a perfect example. That now blew up, and he's got ties to a lot of kids. Where was Chad Dollar? Chad Dollar's been all over the place. He was at Georgia. He's recruited over the past couple years most of the state of Georgia. Where was Mike Roberts? He was at IU, which means he's recruited at some point most of the state of Indiana or like the Midwest, right? So this is where having that type of staff is a huge benefit, is a huge bonus. It just changes the game.
That kind of works into why I'm okay with some level of a teardown. Like, the talent level, they need to be able to. That's the thing. The coaches need to be able to have the spots to use their talents to improve the roster.
Yeah, but I also say I think it's unfair because of the way the roster was constructed this year. There are some guys that were on this roster that can be a part of a big time roster.
Right, but
because they have complementary abilities.
They do, but
they just weren't ever in a position to play on a team that had top of the roster possibilities.
I 100% agree, but here's my counter to that. If you don't have the spots to bring in those type of players, how do those guys ever become those complementary pieces to?
We're talking about changing 6 or 7 spots on the roster, Dave. How many spots does a roster have?
No, we're talking about 3 spots. We already have 3 coming in.
Those 3 spots are changing.
Right, but they're not.
And likely 3 more spots are changing.
They're not coming in as the stars.
That's 6 new players on the roster.
Right.
It is up to the staff. Freshmen can be stars. It's impossible.
Well,
freshmen have never played well in college basketball.
They have, but if we're betting $1 on whether next year those 3 freshmen will be stars or not, I'll take the not.
I would say Skillings and Reed will be valuable pieces of this.
That's not
roster.
A star.
Okay, so now you have 3 spots. Now you hypothetically have 3 spots to go get top of the roster guys.
Right.
If Dave stays, you have 1.
Yes.
Right? And you need 1 or 2 more, potentially. If you have 3 top of the roster guys in college, in the American Athletic Conference,
Okay.
you have 3 top of the roster guys, you're a pretty damn good team.
Right. But what did we say in one of our recent podcasts about expectations for transfers?
Well, but they understand with this roster, you have to make sure you go find at least 1, potentially 2 top of the roster guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just, I want the most chances as possible to fill those spots.
But what if one of the guys that you have shit on becomes a mid to top of the roster guy?
Then I will gladly say I was wrong, but I don't see that right now. So,
like, what if John Newman takes a step as a senior?
John Newman is in my group of guys that I'm totally fine with, that I think is a very solid player.
Okay, but we've declared Dave is the only top of the roster guy. What if John Newman becomes the top of the roster guy, and then you hit on a transfer, and now you have 3 top of the roster guys, and everybody else can slot into a role? You have forgotten your thirst, your bloodlust for gutting this thing and tearing it down has made you forget that guys can get better.
They can. Yeah, they can. It doesn't mean I think they will.
Okay.
I mean, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, like 6 dudes I'd be cool with coming back. The rest can go.
I think that's probably where we're going to end up.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about 3 freshmen and 3 transfer portal, potentially 4 transfer portal. That is 7.
Yeah. 13
spots.
Yeah.
Out of and you have 6 guys that return. Like that, we're on the same page.
No,
technically.
I know.
You're just arguing, you're saying there's 6 guys you want to return, and then in the other breath saying you'd prefer that only 3 of them did.
No, not at all. I mean, there's no, I'm not saying that at all. I mean, I think that there's like Jared Hensley and Odi Iguama. I think they can be those pieces you're talking about because they have the athletic profile and that we would be looking for to fill those types of positions. And I am willing to see how those guys grow because of their athletic profile. Like Jared Hensley is the perfect example of that. Like as he progressed at the end of the year, I'm encouraged by him because of his athletic profile, that he's a guy that the more minutes he gets, the more time he gets in the system, he can take a bigger jump because of what he provides from a physical standpoint and an athletic standpoint. Like there's other guys that I look at and I go, their athletic profile doesn't,
and that's fair,
doesn't say to me that this guy's going to all of a sudden become something. And and maybe that's like this coinciding with the NFL draft and things like that. You just look, you look at profiles and you look at athleticism and things like that, and you go, how much better can this person be based on their own physical, in some cases, limitations or not limitations.
And I think the athletic profile is a fair thing to gauge. Like it's going to matter as you get to the Big 12. Like you're not
incredibly, it's going to matter.
You're not going to be able to hide a lot of non-athletic guys. I get that. Let's catch up here.
Well, I'm going to start. Hold on. I'm going to start with. Let me scroll back up to Bearcat Mick, who this was 20 minutes ago when we first started on the subject, but he agreed wholeheartedly with my perspective. So I just want to.
Your initial perspective was on point, and then you.
No, it never changed. It was still on point.
It did.
It was still on point.
Let's see. Honest opinions about JD. I don't know how to feel about him this year. Some shots are just bad, and his defense was sloppy at times. Okay. Here's the conundrum with JD.
Do you want to say sloppy or just laissez-faire? Like, I don't just think he gave a shit.
I don't think – no, I disagree with that completely. I think he was trying. He just doesn't have the athletic profile
That's
to
true.
guard Fabian White, Vance Jackson. Who's the dude for Tulsa? I always forget his name.
Oh, Uriah Horn or whatever.
Jariah Horn.
Uriah
yeah.
Horn.
Like, he doesn't have the physical profile, the athletic profile to guard any of those dudes. Whether he wants to or not, no matter how hard he tries.
The guys from Memphis.
Right. You need here's my take on JD. JD is a massively important part of this roster. But it's not at 28 minutes a game.
Yeah, his usage and what he's being asked to do does not
is above what he's able to do, and that's not fair to him.
No. Because you're asking someone to do stuff that they can't do.
Right. I used to ask Aaron to write articles that people would click on, and he couldn't do that. So I made him the producer of the podcast network. Sorry, Aaron. I'm just kidding. That was mean. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. He's not listening, so that's good.
What do you even say to that? Of course I'm listening. What do you even say? You had me writing AAC wrap-up articles. I mean, what am I supposed to do with that?
Nobody clicked on that shit, so we found a new role for you.
That ain't on me.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, you're
at 22 minutes a game.
Guard this guy and then also be our,
second leading scorer, our shooter. Like, remember this. Here's what's astonishing about last year. Think of all the bad shots he took. What everybody thought were the bad shots he took, right? He shot over 36% from three. In the pantheon of shooting for this university, to take the number of shots he did and shoot just a tick under 37% is a miracle, right? Like,
yeah.
He had no business shooting that percentage on those number of shots with the type of shots he took. But he did. It happened. I saw it. And the crazy thing is, we watched the shots he took last year and said, if he keeps taking shots like that, his three-point shooting percentage is going to crater. And it went up. So I get everybody like, quit taking those stupid-ass shots, Jeremiah. But who else on the team
is
going to put the orange thing through the hoop with the net on it?
If you want him taking, we'll call it 3 less shots a game because we subtract the 3 crazy shots. Who are you then giving those 3 shots to?
Right.
Like, are they just not taking 3 shots? Like
they're just 3. We're adding 3 30-second clock violations to the game.
Yeah. So I mean, like they have to go to somebody else. Who do you feel more confident in making shots that you want
Dave
to
or Jeremiah? Those are the 2 people I wanted taking shots, right?
For the most part.
Right.
Yeah.
And then people were like, they should take more mid-range shots. I'm like, did you see how many contested twos?
They should take more of the worst shot in basketball.
Yeah. Also, they took a ton of the worst shot in basketball. If you watch Dave and Jeremiah shoot, there were a bunch of shots they took that were from 18 feet because they had to try to shake somebody and pull up.
There are 4 shots you should take in college basketball: 3s, layups, dunks, and free throws. That's it.
That's it. Will the staff be looking for transfers with multiple years of eligibility left?
Hell yes.
Yes.
These guys better be good when they go to the Big 12. So yes,
right?
They will be looking for transfers with multiple years of eligibility left. Because you can't be doing it over again your first year in the Big 12. You need this group of transfers need to be juniors, seniors as you enter the Big 12.
Right. Is there a guy who will be on UC's roster next season who will transfer after their current team is bounced out of the tournament? This weekend? I don't know if it's this weekend. What if whoever the guy, like, remember, We're dealing with remember what I said. The guys that enter the transfer portal are 75% done with the process. What if one of those guys sneaks into the second weekend, right? So then I say, yes, there'll be somebody that bounced out of the tournament this weekend on the roster next year. Then they get into the second weekend. Guess what, Dave? I'm wrong. And then people come back and go, oh, you said somebody that was bounced out of the tournament the first weekend was going to be on the roster next year. They made it to the second weekend. You're a dumbass. So I got to cover all my bases.
Also, that would be tampering. So no, we're not involved in any of that.
Everybody is involved in that.
Tampering.
It's not tampering if you're not dealing with the off the limit people. If you're not talking to the kid, you're not talking to the parents, not talking to the high school coach, you're not tampering. You're just having conversations with your friends.
Yeah.
Right? You had a friend call you and a name came up. That's not tampering. It's just, let's say a coach is out next weekend and he's having lunch somewhere and an old friend sits down at his table for lunch and they start talking about a player that the old friend happens to have a connection to. Not family, not coaching, but just, I know this guy. You want to talk about him? Yeah, we'll talk about it. It's hard because they are increasing in size. Love it. So probably, let's see. So probably Madsen roll, but we'll average some more minutes than Mason did. Who? I don't know. I think I got lost in the conversation. Aaron spins award-winning articles. I don't know what articles. T-Win, I'm going to sell you out. I'm going to sell you out. You are my age. Quit calling me a boomer. Boomer.
You guys are way too young for that anyway.
Yeah. Like I'm old. He graduated from UC in 2000.
Boomers are like 60 years old.
Right.
Will there be any interest in 2022 high school prospects with the open scholarships?
It would have to be a special high school prospect. Guess what? I talked a bit about this on the nightcap last night. I talked to I've got a lot of assistant coach friends around the country. Just it's the nature, like I said, of being on the road for 12 years. They said they were coaches. Everybody, you see the end of season awards, right? And they think coaches fill those out. Head coaches fill those out. No, they give them to their assistants. So I was talking to an assistant in a high major league, and they were doing the postseason conference awards, and it got to freshmen, the all freshman team, and they're looking at each other like, guess what? The only teams playing freshmen are the bad teams.
Yeah.
And the freshmen that are playing on the good teams aren't playing enough to be on the all freshman team, right? They're averaging 4.5 points and 2 rebounds. You can't put them on the all freshman team because that's just a bad look. That's just not how the sport is going. So maybe if an elite or a high level prospect ends up with a connection to the staff, like decommitting or getting out of their LOI or something crazy happens, maybe portal, baby.
Yeah.
It is portal season.
You need grown ass dudes.
This is who do you have going into the Big 12 as the ideal point guard? Cash, Nick Van Exel, Steve Logan. None of the above.
No, Lance Stevenson.
He didn't play point guard here, but I get your point. 6'5", long, athletic, facilitator, a lot of shit to his game. I know where you're coming from when you say that.
No one
Of
needs
those guys, I mean, in terms of point guard, Nick was the best point
Nick.
guard.
Yeah,
Nick was an NBA like legendary point guard. Give me Nick the Quick all day, every day.
right.
Logan benefited, and Steve was amazing. Don't get me wrong, but he benefited from not playing in a league with a bunch of long, tall, athletic motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, he was outscoring Southern Miss by himself.
Right. Cash. God, I wish you guys could have seen Cash before his knee. I really do. There were times watching him that was just like, oh, because like he's one of the better shooters UC's ever had. And before the knee, he was a blur. Well, that breaks my heart to think about what Cash could have been. But going into the Big 12, I want a 6'4" kid with some, like a 6'8" wingspan.
Yeah, you just, I mean, like, and that's kind of just goes back to my physical profile thing. Like, you need 6'2" plus at the point, 6'4" plus at the 2, 6'6", 6'7" at the 3, 6'8",
Right.
6'9" at the 4. I mean, and 6'10", 6'11", or whatever you want to do with your 4s and 5s. But like,
Right.
and just watch Big 12 basketball. Like, how many just like 5'10" point guards are there? How many 6'2" shooting guards are there? How many 6'5" threes are there? Now there's some,
Well,
but what is their athletic profile?
and of course, everything's a copycat, right? Like that's how sports works. We've talked about that a million times. Baylor is the copycat in that league right now, right? They're the defending fucking champion.
Yeah.
Go look at that Baylor roster from last year. Wasn't everybody 6'5" and up?
Yeah, except for their point guard, Butler.
Right. Who wasn't far off, right? He was also not small.
No, but you had Maceo Teague, you had
Right.
and then you had their front line that was, all 6'8" and bigger.
And insanely athletic.
You have maybe my favorite name in all of college basketball on their team,
The African kids.
Flo Thamba.
Yeah.
Instead
No,
of-
Flo Thamba was kind of a bit player on that
Well,
team.
he's on the team now.
Yeah.
Not Mo Bamba, Flo Thamba.
Flo Bamba.
No, Flo Thamba.
Flo Thamba, right.
Mo Bamba,
Um,
Flo Thamba.
But my point being, the league is copying Baylor, which is just like you said. 2 guards are 6'6", small forwards are 6'7", and 4s are 6'8", 6'7", 6'8", depending on their skill level and athleticism. And your 5 is a 6'10", 6'11" rim runner.
Yeah.
And everybody's got 6'10" plus wingspans. And 1 through 4 can shoot the 3. And like it's the Monstars. Like the Monstars are happening, Dave.
Yeah.
So the days of being able to survive going 5'10" at point guard, 6 foot at 2 guard, 6'3" on the wing, that's over for Cincinnati.
It sure is.
It's out.
I mean, we're seeing it right now, even in the AAC. Like
Right.
that type of a roster is outgunned against the premier teams in the AAC.
Well, and it's because of what Cincinnati did. Troy Copain, 6'4". Jacob Evans, 6'6", great athlete. Jaron Cumberland, 6'5", but could do everything. Gary Clark, 6'8", could do everything. Kyle Washington,
Right.
6'9", could do everything. Like Cincinnati started that trend in the American. Kelvin Sampson just went, look, if we're going to win this league, we got to do that.
Yeah. And the question isn't Trey Green under 6 foot. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could get away with one. The point being, you can't have a roster.
That's the thing. Is if he's your
built
point guard,
6'5" and under.
if he's your point guard, then your 2 guard can't be 6'3" and your 3 can't be 6'5".
Right, because your opponent is going to overwhelm you.
Right. It's a trickle down. You can have a 5'10" point guard if everybody else is 6'4" and bigger.
Right. 5'10", 5'11" point guard. Okay, 6'5" 2 guard, 6'7" 3 guard.
Right.
6'8" combo forward and a 6'10" center. You can
Right.
survive with the 5'10" point guard. Because there's only one position like that, the teams are just going to be able to rise up and shoot over. Think about how many, again with Jeremiah, here's the thing I continued when I talk to people inside the program. He's doing everything in his physical ability to guard the 4. But the 4s that he's guarding are bigger and stronger and can just, okay, I can get you to a certain point where I'm just going to rise up and shoot over you, and there's nothing you can fucking do about it. Nothing.
And it also makes it hard for him to get his shot off, as we've seen.
Right. That's why he's got to take so many tough-ass shots.
There's no space when the guy guarding you is 3-4 inches taller than you and has, the wingspan that they do.
Right. They're going to be able to close out and contest. It's just, and how many times did we see UC foul guys on 3-point shots this year?
Too many.
Why? Because they had to overcompensate for length. So they have to close out harder because they can't get a hand up to the arc of that shot. So they have to close out, and it ends up they just crash into the guy because that's the only real way they could defend it. I don't know. This is the most real conversation we've had on the basketball roster in a while. Probably, period.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I think, like I said earlier, it's hard to, some people don't just want to be honest about things when it comes to college kids. And I get that. Like, it's okay to say, like, this player is not good enough to go where we want to go. Like,
right.
It's not an indictment on them as a person. Like,
well, but some people take it too far.
Oh, for sure. Because people take everything too far.
Like just because he doesn't have the ideal athletic profile or he's long-term not going to fit, all of a sudden to some people, he's a fucking bum.
No, not the case at all.
Right. Mason Manson was a great kid. Awesome kid. Gave everything he had for 2 years to this program. But long-term, you got to be better at that spot, whether it's as a rotational bench player or it's as a starter or whatever the case may be. You have to be better. And it sucks, like, from a human level, a human perspective, because that's what I think people forget. Like, it's a business. Well, yeah, it's a business, but it's a business with like real people involved, right? Have some compassion, but it's also fine to be like, look, with the roster as currently constructed, they're going to have to play way over their heads to get to where the head coach wants them to be. Not you, not Johnny Fan, right? Not Dave Simone.
Yeah.
The head coach wants more success than Dave Simone does. I guarantee you that.
I don't know. I don't ever want the other team to score a basket. So
the head coach doesn't either. He understands that they're going to get a couple, but he doesn't want that either. He wants to win every game 55-0. Sure. But I just, it's a good conversation to have. It's a healthy conversation to have if you have it in context, right? When we have these conversations out of context, people lose their minds. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it comes across as it can come
Talent.
across as harsh, but like
Right.
I'm not saying these things in a derogatory or mean way. Like
I know you're not.
no, I know, but like people, when you just say someone's not good enough, they take it like, oh, you're being mean. I'm not being mean. I'm just like, I don't, you know, I never played varsity basketball. I wasn't good enough, but like,
You have
so what?
survived the meaning of I'm not good enough.
So like, but so what? Like, this is big time college athletics where coaches are making millions and we want to go to the NCAA tournament and we want to go far in the NCAA tournament. I want players that can get us there.
Right.
And if that means that some player on your team proves to not be good enough, that's okay. Like, it's, and it's up to the coaches to identify those things so that those things happen few and far between. Now, obviously, we're in a unique situation where
third coach in 4 years. Like,
so I don't expect
it's not an admirable spot for anybody.
I wouldn't expect or anticipate this to happen more than this year. If it does, then that's a Wes Miller problem, not a kid problem, because that means they're not identifying talent well.
I still like, what have we in a lot of ways learned about the transfer portal? The transfer portal is not a whole lot different than junior college basketball.
Back in the day when junior college basketball, like it takes, for a lot of these guys, it takes 2 years.
Right, but I mean, I'm talking about like where you're having to, on your own accord, do a roster turnover, not because like the players decided, like where you realize these guys aren't good enough.
Yeah.
You would hope that
yes.
I mean, because you look at it, the best teams, the ones that are perennially in the tournament, yes, they have transfers. Everybody has transfers. But those coaches are not flipping rosters every year or two because of they wouldn't be in the tournament if the guys that they were identifying as players weren't progressing the way that they would want them to.
Right. Jason, if you would like information on Xavier, musketeerreport.com. I don't know.
Tens and tens of people reading that website right now, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, they're very busy right now. They are very busy right now. Let's see. What else we got? This one. Is it more likely than not Sage won't be a big contributor into his junior year? I don't know until he shows up.
That's a unanswerable question.
Do I think it's probably going to take a year? Yeah. Do I know from there? No. Like I don't know how long, but what I know, he's 7 foot, he can shoot, and he moves pretty well. In terms of like 7-footers, those are good qualities to have.
And that also takes them a
and
little
it also
longer.
If it wasn't going to take him a little longer,
he would be going to
Duke.
Right.
He'd be going to Duke and declaring for the draft. Ed, we're trying to run a serious podcast here.
No, we're not. We've never really tried to run a serious podcast.
All right.
At least I had.
All right.
But
I don't have anything else. Do you?
No, I think we've covered it.
I'm sorry to Urban Artifact. This is their first podcast. We had 2 timestamps. They are the timestamp sponsor. We usually have
blame football.
Yeah, we're getting to we'll get back to multiple conversations, multiple points of conversations next week when spring practice resumes, when the transfer portal is in full swing. Like, there's going to be a lot to talk
And
about.
when we don't have a guest, I'm sure at the end we'll get into a Bengals thing, and that can be a timestamp. And
Right. Like, there's going to be a lot more timestamps. Tonight was 2 timestamps. John Cunningham, Bearcats basketball. Because I felt like that was what you guys wanted.
sure.
So we gave it, as Jalen Rose always says, give the people what they want. And what they wanted was John Cunningham, who I thought was awesome. Like, I think that was the most candid conversation
As
we've had with
always.
John Cunningham. He gets better every time. And I think it went great. So we just crossed. We're crossing right now the 2-hour barrier, Dave. It's no longer a bit. If this was still a bit, I would have got out of here 14 seconds ago, and we would have been under 2 hours.
We've long passed the bit. Spit the bit, if you will.
We did. The bit was fun while it lasted. But we got 31 people in here watching right now, which I think. Look, I think the basketball discussion we had was as good a basketball discussion as we've had in a long time. So
I'm glad I
appreciate it.
I'm glad I could be a part of it.
I'm glad you were a part of it because you have a different perspective, and I welcome a different perspective. I think we just need to, like, the funny thing is when we talk it out, we're actually pretty much in the same place. We just come from different angles. But the reality is we think pretty much the same thing. We
Maybe
just argue with each other about
maybe because we know something.
Right.
Not like personally, but maybe.
Yeah, it is what it is. That's gonna wrap it up. I've got to get up. The next 2 days are going to be rough for me. Got to go meet with the oncologist tomorrow. Don't know what's next for Kelly. Hopefully it's good news. Fingers crossed. Then I got radio 3 to 6 tomorrow, 3 to 6 Friday. So if you want, join me on ESPN 1530. I'll be there during the afternoon both days. And we'll be back next week. Spring practice gets back rolling again. Transfer portal gets fired up. We've got a new sponsor in Urban Artifact. I'm going to hit you with another Urban Artifact fact tonight, Dave.
Okay, what's that?
Urban Artifact is the largest sour-only brewery in the United States. And over 10% of the fruit used in making fruit beers nationwide goes to Urban Artifact.
How do they know that?
I don't know.
I mean, I would like to know how they know that. I'm interested to know.
We've had sponsors on before, like the representative for sponsors. I think they would know this is how much fruit we use. How much fruit does everybody else use? Right? They said I mentioned earlier, they use 700,000 pounds of real fruit every year in making their beers. So if you know what everybody else is using, then you know what your percentage is. So I guess that's 7 million. There's 7 million pounds of fruit used in brewing beer in America, and Urban Artifact has 10% of the market.
It's a lot of fruit.
It's a lot of fruit. Thanks to Urban Artifact for joining the family. Super awesome to have them on board. Make sure you get down to their Northside location, 1660 Blue Rock Street, open Wednesday through Sunday, pizza kitchen on site. Beers are sold online. Make it happen. Support our new sponsors, Urban Artifact. Support our old sponsors, the Holy Grail, by getting down to the banks once this red season gets kicked off. He's Dave Simone.
You'll probably need
Chad
a lot
Brendel.
of beers at the Holy Grail to get through this red season.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a good one. I don't feel great, Dave. I'm gonna yell and scream a lot about the Reds tomorrow on the radio. So we'll see how it goes. He's Dave Simone. I'm Chad Brendel. John Cunningham, huge thank you for joining us. It was awesome to get that hour with John. And we'll see you next week with the BBP on Monday and the BCJ podcast at some point in time. Monday, Marquise Copeland, Super Bowl champion, joins us. We're killing the content game. It's the BCJ podcast brought to you by the Holy Grail right here on BearcatJournal.com.